Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavateruttama shloker bhaktir bhavati naishtiki krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nandagopa kumaraya govindaya namo namaha. Hare Krishna. I'm very grateful to all of you allowing me to do some service this morning. Nice to be with the Bhakti Center online, digitally, at least in some manner. So today we are reading from the 10th canto, chapter 82, text 18 and 19 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Kunti uvacha arya bratar aham manye atmanam akritasinam yadva apatsu madvartam Nanusmaratha Sattamaha. Translation and purport by his the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Queen Kunti said, "My dear respectable brother, I feel that my desires have been frustrated because although all of you are most saintly, you forgot me during my calamities." Purport here, Queen Kunti is addressing her brother Vasudeva. We'll be reading the next verse as well. Suhrido nyatayah putra bhratarah pitaravapi nanusmaranti swajanam yasya daivam adakshinam. Translation. Friends and family members, even children, brothers and parents, forget a dear one whom providence no longer favors. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur both comment that Kunti does not blame her relatives for her suffering. Thus, she calls them most saintly persons and alludes here to her own bad fortune as the cause of her unhappiness. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantigam. Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vidamsya. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances, to all the assembled devotees, all the senior devotees present there, and all the participants. Hare Krishna. So, in this chapter, where there is an interesting meeting which happens between the Yadus and with Krishna and Balram, it's specifically happening just before the Kurukshetra war in the line of events. So just after this event, the bloodiest battlefield of mankind, the Mahabharata war, took place, and the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, which comes out. So there is a very overwhelming situation which happens, that Krishna and Balram have not met some of the devotees whom they have spent the sweetest of the moments together and had the best of the interactions in their lives. So it's been almost a few decades that they have not met each other. And so the situation is very, very overwhelming. And they come and exchange greetings. So Kunti, in text number 18, we see that as soon as she sees her brother Vasudev, and she's overwhelmed, and she's seeing her relatives, and the first thing she remembers is that all her anxieties which were suppressed in the deep subconscious heart or mind, they just come, they overflow in her consciousness, and she immediately expresses her humanness, which we see that, I have suffered so much and I have deeply wanted your association, your presence, but all of you were never there for me. And incidentally, it's not that the problems were only from the Kunti's side. Vasudeva himself was stuck in dealing with Kamsa and so many other things. So everybody was in calamity, but they did not have the means of communication to update each other of their situations. Those days, unlike today, you can always send a text, and you can always update your real life situations through Instagram or social media somewhere or the other, and therefore there is no anticipation left in this modern world. I still remember about when my father, when I was very young, my father and would be staying in some other country for some time on some job purposes. So I remember we used to wait for his letter, and the letter would come to us after about a month or two, and then we would reply that letter. It would be a month or two. So there was a lot of anticipation, a lot of joy in anticipation, so much eagerness to know and meet each other, because you were sharing about what all happened those couple of months when you were not meeting each other. Unlike today, when you meet each other, there is practically nothing to share, because you have been digitally so connected on phone and video. Everyone knows everything. I purchased a home and car and this and that. Yesterday I ate something. So even if I meet someone after a couple of months, there's not much to talk about, because we are totally updated about everything. So the context of when Kunti is, how Kunti, when she comes out with her emotions, is it tells that they haven't met each other. There was no mean of sufficient communication to each other at that time, no satisfactory communication, and therefore it's very evident that they are having one of the first interactions after their own tragedies, their respective tragedies of their life. Even more interesting part is what you see is Kunti is a character who is glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam. She is one of the characters, one of the very few women who are glorified in the Vedic literatures, along with Draupadi and many others. And for these characters are not just glorified, they are glorified in the manner that one can aspire to become like that, like them. One can aspire to follow in their footsteps. Along with them, we also hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 6th canto, there is a mention about the 12 Mahajans, who are called the ideal people for human beings to follow. Interesting that verse, Swayambhur Narada Shambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manuhu Prahlado Janako Bhishmor Balir Vayasakir and Vayam here refers to Yamaraj. These 12 Mahajans, Jana means human beings, Mahajan means great human beings. amongst these 12 Mahajans, none of them are ordinary human beings as such, because there is Brahma, who is not a ordinary human being. Then Shiva, not ordinary. Manu, not ordinary. Kapila is not ordinary. Uh, Even Bhishma is not ordinary. Bali is not ordinary. But then why are they told to be as, why are they referred to as human beings and then Mahajan, great human beings? Because in the, with the perspective that these are kind of people whom you can emulate, whom you can follow, and you can learn something for in your day-to-day life, in your human experience, in your human journey, which is very, very important. So even when we read about the character of Kunti, one place she's glorified so much, but she's never portrayed as a superwoman, etc. Just like these Mahajans. That is the spirit, that is the essence of all spiritual journey for those who have a physical body of a human being. We see in the Srimad Bhagavatam that this aspect of humanness is again and again described, even with great, great personalities. And it appears that this aspect of humanness is a fundamental pillar for one's own spiritual growth. See, regardless of one's intellectual brilliance, regardless of the scholarship which one has, regardless of all the learnings we do of the scriptures, or even being a very great psychologist, understanding human emotions, in today's time being a counselor or a mentor, or as they say, life coach, which is everyone wants to become a life coach these days. So regardless of all of these things, what expertise you have to play with mind and intelligence, it's extremely important to cultivate the humanness. Without that, all forms of learning, all forms of knowledge, all forms of tapasya, it loses all its value and all its relevance completely. So when we read these kind of verses, such as Kunti, one time she's kind of overwhelmed and saying, "Oh, you were not there for me," and then other time she says, "No, maybe it was my own doing. It is karma, it is fate," and all of that. You see that there is a lot of humanness which is being portrayed. So spirituality is not about portraying oneself as a superhuman with no faults, but it is actually about embracing our own human limitations and then working towards the aspect of growth, working towards aspect of connecting ourselves with the truth, connecting ourselves with Krishna with humility, with sincerity, with integrity, and so on. That's extremely important. And this is why you see that no matter how great a personality is shown in the Srimad Bhagavatam, let's say Yamaraj. Yamaraj's own sister is Yamuna. There are stories in the Puranas where if you read, you will feel that, oh, Yamaraj is no great being. He also he had some embarrassing situations of his life. Like Narad Muni, we read. He was like a kind of a Gandharva trying to flirt around with other apsaras at one point of time. But here we are not even talking one point of time. Bhishma Dev, in his very life, he committed certain acts which were very embarrassing to him in a political sense. Like he could not give justice to the right people. Although being in power, he facilitated the Duryodhana or the wrong elements to grow. So this is an embarrassing situation in one's political career. If you see about Lord Shiva, he gets influenced by Mohini Murti and experiences a kind of a seminal discharge. If you read about Brahma, he runs after his own daughter, and so many such situations are there. In the story of the 12 Mahajans themselves, you will see that a very good life, but some places where some real, serious, embarrassing situations have happened. Similarly, even in Kunti's situation, embarrassing situations did happen. Yet, in the light of the Bhagavatam, in the overall aspect of personality of theirs, they are glorified. They are glorified to be being people who can be followed, who can be emulated. It is because it is through their journey you see, when you see through the light of these kind of personalities, you see that spirituality is not about simply rigid rules and regulations. It is not about, or in the modern sense of what you say, the 10 commandments, etc. It's not about that. While the foundational guidelines, such as let's say some rules and regulations are there in the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada gave us the 4 regulative principles and so on. So these kind of guidelines or some kind of rules are essential, but they only serve as a baseline. They serve as a baseline to cultivate, which will be a facility to cultivate deeper spiritual growth. In itself, it is not about, that's not spirituality. It's not spirituality that way. And that's why when you see Srimad Bhagavatam, you read about so many stories. If spirituality was just about simply about rules and regulations, then we should have uh, simplified our life by just reading one story of one person, let's say an ideal woman, Kunti, let's say an ideal person, Bhishma, or ideal person, Narad, etc. Whatever. Take one person and that's it. He gives you 6 or 7 rules, 10 rules, 20 rules, whatever, and then everything is done. Then you don't need all these so many stories. Why are there so many stories? This is because this itself is a proof that spirituality is not simply about some fixated rules and commandments. It is driven uh, out of a conscious journey. Or spirituality is, rather, we can say, Bhagavatam. It's 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 an experiential journey, not simply a prescription that you do this and follow this, then you will get this output. It doesn't exactly happen like that. And as you go on practicing spirituality in your own lives, as you age in the process, you do realize that despite knowing so many stories and this and that, and probably memorizing so many prayers and knowing how to present that these are the 4 points you learned, these are the 3 messages, these are the 2 things, and we also make some kind of acronyms out of prayers and all. Still, even for the person who has learned it and made all of this, he or she still has a journey to make, because spirituality is like that. It is not about this thing. So this is why you see that there is so much space, so much importance, and so much expression given by Sri Vyas, who is the writer of Srimad Bhagavatam. He describes these characters not just in their ideal situations of the point of surrender to Krishna, but also in the journey till they came to the point where they absolutely could submit to the supreme truth in the full sense of it. Till that time, what all happened? That's vividly described. Even by also by reading by these kind of stories, the more you read about all these various personalities, especially even take any role model which you like, take any person, you will see these kind of things. Whether it is Dhruva, whether it is Prahlad, or this and that, you will see all these kind of things. Sometimes it also happens that in our journey of life, because we are very exhausted with the material condition and material life appears very overwhelming, there is a natural distaste, or there's a desire to just shun it off, put it off, just switch off the material thing and just practice something which is in the code of spiritual life, and just do that. That kind of feeling does come in everyone. Actually, as Kali Yuga is progressing, more and more people are becoming like that. They are becoming very much polarized in these 2 aspects, that either there is spiritual life and there is material life. There is a complete distinction between these two. But the more you learn about spiritual life, the more you read about these personalities, the more you understand Bhagavatam, you understand that there is essentially no distinction between spiritual life and worldly life. This distinction is simply artificial. Connecting with the supreme absolute truth is not possible by isolating ourselves from the situations. Truth is not designed to be discovered by escaping our own material realities. In fact, we have to discover the truth, we have to understand the truth, we have to experience the truth in the very center of the chaos of our own lives which we are leading. That is spirituality. Trying to box it out in two different categories altogether, that's not spiritual life. That is just a mental, it's an imagination. Then it makes no sense for us to have material life altogether at all. The very fact that we have material life with its own complexities is whatever it is, because of our doing or what it is. But it is a facility for us to cultivate certain values in that circumstance, so that we can rise and reach to the supreme truth. If we are unable to practice spirituality in our day-to-day practices, in our journey on day-to-day in lives, if we are unable to do any of those things, then spirituality is just a dream. It's just a concept, and that's why, and that is specifically why all these characters, so many roles, so many responsibilities, so many conditions in which women, men, kings, ordinary people, great people, even gods themselves, they are. This is the reason why it is described, so that we learn that in the varieties of so many situations, how did they try to live their spiritual life? How did they try to connect with the truth? So similarly, in our own journey, we have to discover our own paths in that manner. None of us is going to get, even if you read 100 stories, you are not going to get a life which can fit into any of those characters. It will be probably one line from Kunti, one line from Narad, one from Manu, one from Dhruva, one from Shiva, one from here, one from there. It's going to be like that. And within that also, you will have some unique situations. And you have to be vigilant, you have to be introspective, we have to be very, very eager in our own hearts, wanting to achieve the supreme truth. And this is when we will have our set of prayers which will be born through the pains of our own existence, and then that's how we'll be able to connect with Krishna. So in kind of essence, it is this humanness, the property of being a human being, which actually bridges the gap between theoretical spiritual information or theoretical spiritual life and the practical living. If that is not done, then spirituality is a far-fetched goal. We will never be able to come anywhere near to that. So this is something which I find very, very beautiful when I read the Srimad Bhagavatam and all about all these personalities. Any of these personalities. In fact, when you read closely about how Krishna interacts with his own loving gopis and sakhas, why do we love Krishna for why do we love Krishna specifically? It's not because he's just God. It is because of the aspect of humanness he expresses in his relations with the cowherd boys, with the gopis. He shares the tears, he shares the embarrassment, he shares the criticism. Sometimes he does mischief, sometimes mischief is done upon him. He feels humiliated, he humiliates others, and so on. So there's a lot of humanness which is expressed even in divine personalities, specifically in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Just to give this understanding for all of us who are practicing, that spirituality does not simply thrive on rituals and prayers and knowledge and so on, but it is by cultivating this sincere humanness, recognizing our own weaknesses, understanding it, not justifying it, and yet making a very sincere effort with a heart filled with love, compassion, and humility, making that journey towards Krishna. That's what actually spiritual life is all about. Without this aspect of humanness, life becomes very hollow, it becomes very unrealistic. There's a great tendency to become hypocritical, that you are so good and ideal in front of others, and all your human weaknesses are maybe just seen only by your spouse, or maybe hidden from that person also, or maybe one close friend. And then that they have to share the biggest burden of your own personality. So that's not exactly what spiritual life is all about. Not that we express our weaknesses all the time in front of everyone, but basically we try to be more real and not theoretical in our practices. That's be real, be honest, be sincere, and be a person whom people and you yourself feel that you are sincerely trying. That's very good to, that's the easiest way one can connect with Krishna. That's what we see in these pastimes. So I'd like to stop here. Thank you all very much. If you have any questions or comments, then please share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Jaganatha Priya Prabhu. Wonderful class. Dear devotees, it's time for you to shine, to reflect back the light of Bhagavatam that Jaganatha Priya just projected so wonderfully. Jamuna Jaya.
Hare Krishna, Jaganatha Priya. Thank you so much for class. Something you said reminded me of something I heard from some speaker sometime, and I hold it deep in my heart. You know, this humanness factor, and I love when it said that being God is just one part of Krishna. He's
Oh, yeah.
he's you know he's a person, and with all those different relationships, so the whole God thing is only one little aspect of him. So you're saying that reminded me of that, and I really, really love the way you said when you go through your thing, you have your own prayers. Queen Kunti went through her stuff and she had her prayers, but I can go through my own stuff and then have my own prayers, which is this deep communication, and talk to Krishna from there. So thank you so much for reminding us of that very personal. It's Bhagavad Gita, the song of God is person. Well, thank you for reminding us of this very personal aspect of Krishna. Thank you, Haribol.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Temple Room. How about Tulsi Vilas? Tulsi Vilas, you have anything to reflect back? Tulsi Vilas, please. He's coming. Yes. There he is. Unmute, Prabhus. Unmute, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for that inspiring class. One, I really appreciated the point of the importance of humanness. It made me think that Prabhupada always emphasized or taught that human life is meant for spiritual endeavors, and as humans, all we can do is give it our best attempt. We can, to be human is just to try your best. And so just thinking of all of these personalities as you were explaining in Srimad Bhagavatam that have had embarrassing situations in their lives, we may also encounter those, but as long as we give the spiritual life our best shot and try, then that's our success. So thank you for that beautiful reminder.
Thank you, Tulsi. Adipurusha Prabhu, would you like to speak now?
Hare Krishna. we are praying to Srila Prabhupada to ask him what he wants us to say, not what I want to say. But what occurs is, like Prabhu was explaining, very nice class. The only place to learn to swim is in the water. You can't have that experience in a book. So we have this philosophy, we have these ideas, but when we have a service, when the spiritual master, when our relationship with the spiritual master comes to that Kurukshetra moment, where we say, how can I serve you? What do you want me to do? And then Guru gives us a service. Sometimes he says, figure out how you can contribute, which is our service. But sometimes you have a prescribed duty, Prabhupada Desh, a place to serve individuals or personality who spiritual master wants you to serve with. And then the philosophy becomes alive. It jumps out of the book. When the conversations we have life and meaning and application, and not just ivory tower, theoretical. It's not synthetic. And it's very dynamic, and we feel it. And we have a spectrum of emotions, and it's exciting and satisfying and pleasing to Krishna. So we want to follow in the footsteps. Mahajana Yena Gatasa Panta says, follow in the footsteps of these great souls. What did they do? Each of them engaged in devotional service and struggled. I know for sure I'm struggling with my own mind and senses and like false ego. One day, like Prabhu was saying, do your humble best. And Krishna is pleased by that. And I think Manohar has something to say. He's bubbling up here. Let's see if we can. Yeah. Where is Prabhupada?
Nice to see you. Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you too. We're all eagerly awaiting your association here in New York.
Where is it?
Arjuna is asking where you are. You're in India, I guess.
Yeah, I'm coming in 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Wonderful. So, Prabhu, unfortunately, I was unable to be present for the first part of the class, to my great sadness. Luckily, it's recorded. But speaking towards the latter part about the humanness, and this question might be a little out of context, but I'm wondering, like on the receiving end, how much humanness to accept or tolerate. Like just even the other night, some very precarious situation came about. So I'm wondering how much to tolerate or how to act in that person's best interests. How do we discriminate how to act in that person's best interest?
So it depends on what kind of role and responsibility we have in our discharge of service as a manager or a leader or whatever, in whichever aspect which we are serving. So it's a very common phenomena which happens on a day-to-day basis, especially when you're running a temple and so on. Like my entire visit here last 2-3 weeks is just meetings and resolutions and repairing things which are broken in terms of communications and misunderstanding and so on. So it's an ongoing battle. But one thing is for sure, that while we are involved in these kind of services, the communication has to be effective and clear when you have to do some service, and if it demands that certain person is informed, or we need to tell someone that this services need to be done in a certain way and so on. Also, when you're seeing human frailties, especially when you are doing some kind of management and all these kind of things, we have to be extremely cautious that our heart does not own that particular situation more than it is. For example, such and such situation happened by so and so devotee on so and so date. So the day passes, we let it go. Of course, there is a memory of it, but there is not a hangover of it, in the sense that we don't carry an emotional hangover and taint our consciousness and also that person, that he's very negligent or she's this way or that way or whichever way or whatever circumstance it is. So that's very important that we be able to discriminate the essential part of the living entity from his human conditions. So while the service may demand constantly, you're always interacting with the human condition and you'll have a struggle at that level. But there must be an internal absorption or a character within ourselves which is cultivated in such a manner that we are able to breathe for ourselves. I would like to say something here. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Pandita Samadarshina, whether he sees an elephant, a dog, or a dog eater, or this and that. It's a very interesting verse. Krishna does not try to tell us to see divinity by ignoring the condition. That you don't see a dog at all, you don't see an elephant. No, you do see them. You see them with their own material existence and material limitations, and you identify very well that this person is a dog, he can bite. This person is an elephant, if he gets cranky, he will trample me. You recognize everything, you analyze everything, you measure everything, means you have analyzed the material existence of someone else very nicely. But at the same time, Pandita Samadarshina does not mean that Pandita ignores the material existence. He recognizes it. Despite of that, he sees the divinity. So, in my personal experience, I don't know much about, I do not have too many shlokas coming out of my mind, thankfully so. But in my personal experience, I have seen that if your daily practices or your own journey is really sincere and you have been able to enjoy the process through the chanting and through the reading, it becomes easier to tolerate others, and it also becomes easier to practice this samadarshina. But those days where I have not been able to do these things properly, but I have probably I can remember 5 shlokas or something. All the shlokas, all the information has failed me n number of times. It's only those days when I was spiritually strong, the navigation through the chaos was very easy. So these kind of services demand that one has to become stronger and deeper within. Otherwise, it is impossible. Otherwise, organizations like ISKCON or any NGO, they can drive you nuts. Because nobody is paid here, everybody is a volunteer. People freely want to connect with Krishna in their own terms, and then you have rules and discipline. So it becomes a challenge many times. I do understand. So for ourselves to breathe, we must have a very deep internal spiritual existence, which consumes us more than the amount of time where our emotions are there in the physical part of our existence. So if we are very consumed by that, then it becomes easier this side. If we are not consumed by that, this thing will never be easy, even if everyone is disciplined and performing up to the mark, to our expectation. Still will become dissatisfied and lonely. There is no limit to external perfections. Even when everything is externally perfect, it will bring loneliness at that time.
How to get consumed, like you said, Jaganatha Priya Prabhu. How do we get consumed given the fact that Krishna is not going to force us? We have our free will. ISKCON is not going to enforce anything. How do we get consumed in such a way that we kind of transcend the difficulty?
So, for everyone's life, in everyone's life, there is a moment where you have to make a very strong choice. Let's say that that everything is going south and no one is up to your expectation, and let's say everything is bogus. And then you feel that I want to now move on to something else, construct a new spiritual circuit or a new architecture, a design of how to navigate. We all come to that point. When you come to that stage, and then that to move further, you have to sacrifice so many things of your own self. Let's say maybe your ambitions or your ego, your desire to accomplish just for the greater good, it's going to consume you. You will have to pay a price for that. When you rise up to that point to do that situation, suddenly you will see that the whole aspect of spirituality kind of reveals it. Then it's not that you practice spirituality, it's as if spirituality starts owning you. It is the beginning of spirituality, actually, I would say. You get owned by the process, not that you are trying to practice the process, that I am something and process is something which I take. The process starts owning you when you live up to that standard. And at some point of time, our egos, our personalities, so many things get challenged and compromised. We have to pay a price. So sometimes I say this very often: when you come across certain situations, pay the price. Most of the times we fail to pay the price because it's the price is always against your own ego and your own false identity. And to preserve that, we lose everything. We learn so many shlokas and stories, but we lose the process. So when that happens, then yeah, I don't know, I'm sounding very abstract, but you have to pay the price someday. And when
I
that
think I
happens, and
think I
that
get
happens
it.
in ordinary relationships. It could not be with a devotee, it could be with your family, with your friends and something. Where if you come across a situation where your ego and envy can be subdued or destroyed or contained, embrace it. That is the beginning of getting absorbed. Then you start enjoying the words. Those are not words. You just start loving them. So then that's how you begin to get consumed. Then you love philosophy. You just love the process for this. You just love it.
Hmm.
There's no distinction between your practice and the what you read.
Hmm.
So that's actually the journey of a sadhaka.
Hmm. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. I'll take my time to process this. This is so profound. Thank you. Krishna Kumari posted something from Virabhadra Prabhu. Acknowledge, accept responsibility, account for what took place, apologize genuinely, amend.
Beautiful.
It's a whole roadmap from Virabhadra Prabhu. Okay. We see Stephanie turned on her camera. Stephanie, would you like to speak?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so it's funny because yesterday I was, with a few devotee friends, we were reading the Bhagavatam, and we were discussing how Bhishma Dev on the battlefield with Arjun, he made the promise that he wouldn't use a weapon in the fight. And it came down to it where Arjun was going to die and he broke his promise. So to see that relationship of such love and compassion and devotion, it's just so much nectar. It's really overwhelming. In the just small portion that we've read, there was just so much in it, to break down. And yeah, we're discussing a lot of it today of what we were discussing yesterday. So it's just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's darshan time. Looks like. Yeah, it is. Thank you, Jagannath Priya Prabhu. If you have time, you can stay for the afterglow right after darshan. If not, no problem. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Turn on your cameras, please, dear devotees. Let's be seen by the Lord and by each other. Also.
Shri Radha Gulida Gaurachandra and Sima Bhagavana ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Afterglow. Is the speaker still here? Jaganatha Priya, are you there? Okay. Okay, who's answering questions for Jaganatha Priya today? Oh no, he's here. He's here. Jaganatha Priya is here. Okay. All right. Would anyone like to speak? What Stephanie said was so profound. When Krishna was challenged, he did not hesitate to sacrifice his own promise for the sake of his devotee. So Krishna pays the price of love, I guess. He's living spiritual life. No false ego there on Krishna's side. Thank you, Stephanie. Beautiful. Very inspiring. All right. Okay, dear devotees, please. The yagya goes on. Who wants to speak, to reflect, to ask a question? We have a very qualified speaker today. Please. Okay. Okay, then Jagannath Priya Prabhu, please conclude your punchlines, finalize, summarize your class, knock us out.
Just let us all be human and practice spirituality from where we are, not superimposing the the grand values of humility, compassion, love, kindness, not superimposing them in an artificial way on us, and also not superimposing that upon others. Let's be kind to ourselves and to others, and gradually make a sincere effort to move. That's
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, Stephanie, is Sage available to say Hare Krishna? No?
I think there
Shah
is
has
a
a
question.
question.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, somebody does have a question.
Hold on, Stephanie. Sage, please. Let's see. We have something in the chat. Krishna Gowda. I brought today at afternoon 3 bread buns in my village bakery for Anai. Indian rupees, 10 rupees. Thank you, Krishna Gowda. Did you offer them to Krishna? That's the question. And Shah has a question. Shah, please unmute yourself.
Hi, first time asking a question, so pardon if I'm a bit of a neophyte to this. I guess I'm just wondering, as we're navigating life and there's a lot of radical things happening. My particular avatar is a Black cis person, and I'm also into political science and socialism, and it's quite the battle. And I guess I'm just wondering if you had any tips as to be victorious.
So whatever we are aspiring to be victorious, the fundamental thing behind victory is the morality behind it. So we have to first see that if I am aspiring to be victorious, is the victory going to be, or is the effort to be victorious be on the side of dharma itself, on the side of truth, on the side of morality. So these things have to be understood. Since you are a student of political science, it's very imperative, especially in the current scenario of this world, that uh, the history is well understood and it is not mixed with the immediate circumstances. So otherwise, there is no end to how you can be. What is the point of righteousness has to be first defined, right? If you take it from, let's say, early 1900s, there'll be some other point of righteous, what is right and what is wrong. You go back to the 18th century, 17th, 16th, 15th, and so on. So even while if you are engaged in any activity which concerns with politics, then the point of origin of what you are going to define has to be first clear in your own self. If it is just driven by the world superpowers and the agendas, you will have very artificial sense of uh, navigation of, or artificial sense of wanting to be victorious. In fact, sometimes in such scenario, people regret of their own victories after a few decades. So that is one very important aspect. In fact, if you read the Mahabharata, or even when you read the Bhagavad Gita, you will see that Arjun has these particular questions. He is in a very political, conflicting scenario, that he has good people on the wrong side. He has very well-meaning, well-intentioned good people on the wrong side, and then there is a history of wrongs and rights and so on. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is teaching all about, right? So in the grossest aspect, I would say, victory is not about just achieving our political goals or something. Victory is more about the feeling you feel in the heart, the sense of accomplishment within is what is victory. So sometimes even losing can be victorious. Losing in the eyes of the world can be victory, as long as you have a complete sense of it within, you know. So we see in political battles also, sometimes people choose to lose because they have a greater plan in mind. So it's something like that. So make sure that you first define your point of righteousness. Otherwise, there is no end. Every 20, 30 years, the history, a newer kind of conflict is being designed and shaped and put in front. And I'm not saying that it's completely wrong. It may have its own right sides, but the origins are not right. So that would be the first step what you could do in your journey, specifically, as you say, political science student and so on, and how to be victorious. First determine whether you are on the right path. That's the first step to victory.
Shah says, thank you. Thank you, Shah, for a very nice question. Intelligent, pertinent. Thank you. What did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tell Srila Prabhupada when Srila Prabhupada said to him that we first must become victorious in our political struggle and then we can deal with Sanatan Dharma? What was the instruction that he received, Jaganatha Priya? Maybe that could help Shah in some way.
Yes, so it was a time when India was subjugated under the British rule and exploitation and so on. So at that time, Prabhupada told, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Prabhupada that freedom for India can wait, but Krishna consciousness cannot. So, of course, this also many times it is seen in a very controversial way. Some people say that Prabhupada was ignoring the decades of the centuries of exploitation done by British for a very supernatural, hypothetical, ethereal, spiritual cause where you have nobody has seen Krishna and so on. And there was also an argument that without the country getting its own freedom and its own credibility, its own dignity, who will listen to it? So all those things are there. However, Bhakti Siddhant was not trying to pitch Krishna consciousness against nationalism. He was speaking of an idea that if you are trying to pursue nationalism or a specific political cause without the sense of spirituality, without the sense of eternity of Atma and soul, there is no end to that. So that was the essential idea. So that's why I would again to this question, it's very important to inculcate the spiritual perspectives deeply, understand them, and then navigate in the political battles. Otherwise, we will be. Otherwise, there's a chance of being misled. That's why Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta told, freedom for India can wait, but Krishna consciousness cannot, because he was seeing that if India is free but yet rooted in the misdirected Western values at that time, there is no point of freedom. So the real freedom starts from spirituality, of understanding the soul, not limited to the gender, to the identifications, to the country, to the colors of the skin, to the boundaries of our neighborhoods and so on. So those things do have its own value. It must be respected in its own merit, but not at the cost of your Atma, your spiritual soul existence. Not one against the other. That was the whole idea.
Yeah. We just added Krishna to the equation, and Krishna will act. Okay. Say just one more contribution, please. One more. Gregory has his hand up. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sage. You can go now. We'll continue. You're free, Sage. You're free to play. Okay, Greg.
How are you? Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. I got the tail end of it. I recently lost somebody in my life. If we're just asking questions, I appreciate it. I'm also new to asking questions on this. So I recently just lost someone close to me in my life and having trouble navigating it right now. I had a conversation with Adi like moments before she passed, and it really helped, I think, not just me, but also her and her family. And I'm reading a little bit of this now, and I could just use some help kind of navigating in this space right now where I am. I feel confident about, reading and learning about the Bhagavad Gita and reading some of these, but I'm new to this, so I'd appreciate it. And thank you guys. Thank you for everyone. And thank you for everyone. I'm going to try to make it to service today as well, Adi. So I'm bringing my son. So I'll see you. And thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg Prabhu. Okay, Adi Purusha Prabhu, please. I know you want to say something in line with Guru Saran
Hare Krishna.
Shastra.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Let's begin.
Okay, well, wonderful discussion about what's righteous, what victory looks like politically or personally. And there's what we do. There's our activity, there's choices we make. And then there's who are we doing it? If the goal is to please Krishna or to please our spiritual master, which is the way we please Krishna, then everything else falls into place. If we have another goal that seems logical or, desirable, and it doesn't involve who we're doing it for, we can do a lot of activity, a lot of service, but without someone we're doing it for, because if Krishna's pleased, we're successful. Even if the external situation doesn't change, Krishna sees our endeavor to do something as a loving offering to him. So we want to remember that. Lord, what do you want me to do in this situation? How can I please you? And that makes their life very simple. Because Krishna's intelligence far surpasses our. He sees the future. He sees conditions that we don't have any idea about. And if we just turn to the Lord when we're making our choices and try to please Krishna, everything else is taken care of. At least that's what I've heard from my guru. Maybe that helps. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Shah, does that help?
Not there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Jaganatha Priya Prabhu, for the class. Have a wonderful day. We love you. We need you. We see you again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.